Hello, Chef Marcus Guiliano here, and I'm your chef on a mission. Today's mission is self-improvement. Let's see, how to succeed at a job, how to succeed in life. And Jamie and I have been doing a lot of our employee reviews, and we really don't call them reviews, they're just sit-downs where we talk about what's going right, what's going wrong, and just basic conversation with staff, how are your goals doing this year, what's happening, in the next year or so in your life, and what's happening here at work, and do you feel, tell us what you need to be improved on, tell us what you like about this, tell us what you're doing good. So all just normal talk. It's not like we're grading somebody and saying, this, and this. So, the story I keep telling over and over, and I think this is a powerful story. I think you probably agree with me, right, Jamie, on the wine bottle story? So, I wanted to learn wine. The number one thing about all staff in my restaurant, most of the staff in my restaurant, and just restaurant staff in general, and staff, just employees in general, in places, they don't have enough product knowledge of what they're selling, right? So whether they work wherever they work, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a car salesman, product knowledge is king. It is amazing what product knowledge. So of course you have to be a person. You have to be a people person. You have to be personal. You have to be able to read people. There's other elements to being successful at your career, but product knowledge is right up there. Being able, to be able to interact with people. I was 19 years old, 20 years old. I wasn't old enough to drink yet, and I wanted to learn wine. I tell most of my staff this story. I'm like, you know what you need to do to succeed in my restaurant. You need to learn more about the menu. You need to learn more about the bar. You need to learn more about the product you're selling, the restaurant, the experience, the story. You need to know more about that. And how are you going to do that, I ask them. So I tell my story. I said, I was 19 years old. I was working at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, the famous resort, and I wanted to learn wine. I really wanted to understand wine and learn wine, but of course I wasn't old enough yet. So it's like, what's the next best thing besides me tasting wine to learn about wine? Well, of course I can read about wine. I can pick up a book and start reading about wine, or I can go through the garbage every night at the restaurant. That's what I did. I picked up a book. I started reading Windows of the World wine book, and it was talking about reading labels and understanding. So what's the next available avenue that I have to learn wine? So I'd go through the garbage every night. I'd line up the bottles of wine on the table, on the one service table, and I'd call in the wine captain, Ira, and he would help me read and decipher. And I was 19 years old. I didn't have much experience. I had really no experience in wine at all. I was learning food. I was putting all my energy towards learning food, culinary school. So I'd line up all the wine, and I'd pick up each bottle one by one, and he'd help me read through Burgundy, Chassagne Montrachet, Brunello, whatever the wine was. We'd go through the labels, and he'd show me the region, the appellation, if it was French, if it was in Italian, if it was Spanish. Teach me the associated grapes with that appellation. If it was American, Napa Valley Cabernet, needs to be at least 75% Cabernet to call it Cabernet. So we went through all of what was on the label. So I knew what the wine was supposed to be in there. I knew all that kind of stuff. So I did this for, a full year, a full season. I might have even done it the following year. And, the wine list was, 700 wines in the restaurant. But I had gone through a lot of those wines in the course of that couple of years. I went through a lot of those wines. So now I know how to read the wine. Now, my next step when I worked at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs, I worked in the Penrose room, I was 21. So now I could actually taste wine. So I would ask for samples. And the wine captain would come in, two wine captains, the maitre d' and the wine captain would come in and bring me wine samples. But they wouldn't tell me what was in the glass. So now I'd swirl, taste it. They'd show me all of that, how to taste it, and the characteristics I was tasting in it. And then it was my job to guess what grape varietal it was, whether it was Sauv Blanc, Chardonnay, Riesling, Burgundy, Chardonnay versus California Chardonnay, Cabernet, Zinfandel, Merlot. And I got to a point where after several months, I could taste something and say, this is Cabernet. This is Pinot Noir. This is Zinfandel. So I got the basic grape varietals down, which was awesome. So what I relay this to my staff is, we have tons of stuff here at the restaurant that you need to know how to sell. And this is going to apply to any business. So now what happens? You have stuff to sell. I have stuff to learn. As the employee, I have stuff to learn. So I explained to my staff is, listen, I'll go to the garbage with you, But if you have to be willing to go into the garbage to learn, just like I did. You have to be willing, not go physically in there, but you have to be able to go to the garbage and go through the garbage, and I will help you decipher the garbage. And that has to be done. But you're not going to learn anything if you're not willing to go through the garbage. Is how I relate that to my staff. And that's the lesson of this. You have to be willing to do what you have to do and go the extra mile. I could have been like every other cook at the Greenbrier who punched the clock out and went home and did whatever. I went to the bar, wherever they were going. Instead, I punched out and I went through the garbage. That was what I did. When I wanted to learn how to ice carve at the Greenbrier said, hey, anybody who wants to learn how to ice carve? The dock is there. It is very, 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 very rare to work any place where they say, go screw something up on our expense. And that's what was with it. The ice carving tools were there. The blocks of ice were there. Go screw up, go have a good time, go learn. So what did I do? I gave up golf. My first season at the Greenbrier, I gave up golf. I started carving ice. And I went from 1 carving a week to 2 carvings a week to 3 carvings a week. And before I knew it, it only took like 2 months, not even a month and a half, 2 months, where the sous chef would pull me aside, the chef de cuisine, and he would pull me aside and say, hey, Marcus, we have a buffet coming up next week, this party. Can you do like this custom piece for it? Because he saw that I was learning and I was progressing. I said, of course, I'll do it. Then he pulled me aside again and he goes, can you do this? And then they started paying me to do it. And that was great because I was now making money from it, but I was still learning a valuable skill. While some of the other people were still out playing golf, still in bed, still sleeping, still going home between their split shift to take a nap, doing whatever, I'd punch out and I'd go hit the dock and start ice carving. Then I started buying tools. The money that I made from ice carving, it was only like 15, 20, 25 bucks a carving is what they give us. But I took all that money and I put it into tools, and I started buying chisels, I started buying chainsaws, and I built up this whole plethora of tools. And I literally had like this box that had like probably $2,000-$3,000 of tools in the mid 90s for ice carving that I funded from doing that. When I came back to New York, the one year, I started ice carving for weddings. So I'd buy a block of ice for $7. I had a freezer I could store it in, and I turn around, I had boxes built to deliver it and insulation wrap, and I turn around and sell the ice carvings for $250 after buying the block for $7, spending an hour to an hour and a half carving it, and then delivering and setting it up. And that's where the big money was coming. I was told by somebody at the Greenbrier, one of the sous chefs, learn 5 carvings, learn 5 basic sculptures. You don't need to be an artist. You don't need to learn 5 things like a dove, the swan, things that people need, that are universal pieces, 5 universal pieces, and you can have a successful ice carving business. And that's what I did. I learned 5 pieces, I learned 10 pieces, I learned more pieces. I was carving left, right, and I haven't carved ice in years. We never called it carving ice. We called it sculpting ice. We're ice sculptors, we're not ice carvers. We sculpt ice. And I went to work for Joe Mastro in Pittsburgh one winter, to do ice carvings there, and I got paid a lot of money. Me and my buddy set up, and we would just do an assembly line and knock out. We got paid like $40 a block, and we would do literally 20 blocks a day. One person would stencil, one person would do the first cut, and we'd go right on down, bam, 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 and knock it out. That was really cool. But the Greenbrier ended up using me like almost as their main ice sculptor, really as their main ice sculptor. I would do the pieces for the front lawn of the Greenbrier Hotel. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, a sled that was 21 blocks that 3 people could sit in, 9 reindeer. It was an amazing thing. It took me 3 weeks, and I had a little bit of help doing it, but it took me 3 weeks to execute something like that. And while the kitchen was slow, the restaurant, the hotel was slow, and cooks were getting laid off, I was getting work because now I was actually on the clock doing this and getting paid more money for doing sculptures. I'm actually getting paid to do it now, as like my job. And that was cool. Everybody was getting laid off and there was no work. I was one that was working. So that was really, so the point of this is, wherever you work, whatever you do, there's always an opportunity to learn stuff. And you're gonna have to dig in the garbage sometimes. That's just how it works. You gotta dig in the garbage to learn. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please hit like, subscribe, and pass it on.